Feels so un-Mars like. Like I should be, yeah, but I love that song.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good one. It's a good one. I used to watch him. He would perform at, let's see here. So I think we're going on YouTube. What I was going to say is he used to perform at the Coliseum at Caesar's Palace. And I used to manage all the employee stuff and blood drives at Caesar's Palace. And we got free Elton John tickets anytime we donated blood.
oh my gosh.
And so I saw his show so many times. And I even took my grandmother once to a special seat in the Coliseum where we got to go up on stage and dance around his piano. And so that's one of those memories, that I'll always have. She's gone now, of course she's passed, but um, yeah, so Elton John always kind of brings a smile to my face. And the people on YouTube that have no idea what we're talking about, um, before we get started with our classes, I like to play a song, and we played Rocket Man as our theme song for today's class. But let me go ahead and hit the record button as well on my end. That way we have a recording in case it doesn't work for one reason or another over on YouTube. So here we go. All right. So welcome and everybody. I am Delisa Hawking, and welcome to everyone that's joining us here on Zoom today or over on YouTube. We are in for an incredible class today. Tara Vogel, we've kind of like been in each other's ethers for a while. But we finally were able to connect through a fun synchronicity. And Tara's going to be teaching us the Mars retrograde class today and telling us kind of the do's and don'ts and everything to work with the energy. I'm going to have her take over in just a moment. For those of you that don't know me, I am a fifth generation psychic medium. And I teach all kinds of psychic development classes and tarot classes and things like that. And my website is spiritandspark.com. And you can find me on socials under Delisa Hawking. Um, Tara is going to tell us a little bit more about her and her work. And while we're getting everything up and running, if you're on Zoom or on YouTube, drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from today. What's fun, I think, about my audience, I'm sure it's the same for you, Tara, is there's so many people from all over the world that come and connect with us. And it's fun to see where people yeah, we're already international. Cornwall, there you go. Canada, all over the map. So drop that in the comments. And yeah, Luminary Parenting is Tara's social media. And Tara, I know that you probably weren't expecting me to say this, but I have to tell everyone watching your moon posts that you do about the moon energy of the day. They're so great. Everybody should be following you on social media.
Oh, thank you.
They're really, really good. I'm going to go ahead and put your slides up on the screen, and I'm going to turn it over to you. So let me remove myself. And
Thanks, Kara. It's so good to see so many familiar faces.
it's a fun,
Um,
fun group. Yeah. So the floor is yours, Tara.
okay, I can see like your whole screen, Delisa. Is there any way that I could just see the slides? Or well, not just me, like they could just see the slides? You know what I mean? Just like to share rather than the whole screen, just part of the screen.
I just have this where I can scroll up and down for the slides.
Okay. Um, we can do that. Can you, let me think. I usually don't share my slides. I have somebody zooming for me, so we will roll with this. Um, but part of it's cut off for me, so I'm wondering like if it can be moved up a little bit, just like a tiny.
Yeah, because it starts right here where it's like only half on the screen, but that is what the image is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, I think Jennifer, you're right. So some of it might get cut off, but we'll just roll with it. Um, okay, so everybody, welcome. Mars actually stations retrograde tomorrow. So yeah, Mimi, I think there is an option to do slideshows, but I'm like not the tech person. My tech people aren't here. Um,
Yeah, because it's not in PowerPoint, it's a PDF file.
yeah.
Yeah, so we're just gonna have to scroll. And Tara, if you're okay with that, I could always circulate it when I send out the replay to everybody that registered.
Yeah, I think that we'll see most of it. And that's fine because it's really this slideshow because Delisa gave me the option. She's like, you can just come and share information or you can have slides. It's totally up to you. But I am a Pisces rising and I can easily get off track. So I said, let me have some slides. So, okay, the title of the class tonight is Getting Intimate and Personal with Mars Retrograde, who actually stations retrograde tomorrow. So we're really going to apply it to like what this means for you. I'll talk a little bit about the collective because there is the Mars Pluto opposition is happening during this retrograde. But I am I run something called the Luminary Parenting Community. And in my community, we always take it down to the very personal level because I do believe when you can work with it personally and work with how it's showing up in your life, which hopefully my goal is by the time you leave here, you will understand like your own personal, unique Mars retrograde story and your Mars opportunity and that in your life right now, because you should be able to know that or have some sense of it when you leave here. That when we can do that work and we can really stay connected to ourselves, the collective works itself out. So we take it down to the personal. Okay, next slide, Delisa. So yeah, I'm Tara. I thought you can read this. I don't need to read this. I wanted to share, and there's so many people in this Zoom room that have heard my story, but I wanted to share my entry into astrology. So, 23 years ago, I became a mom. And and that was back in 2001. And in 2005, I was pregnant with my second daughter and I gave birth and my son was 3.5 and I had the most beautiful, natural, uneventful birth. And Eva, it's my second daughter's name. I have three children. Um, Eva was just not developing typically. And for many years, like her first 5 years of life, I tried so many different things because I wanted to fix her. I wanted to heal her and make her better. We ended up getting a diagnosis when she was around 5. Her working diagnosis is cerebral palsy, but it's still, that's a very broad umbrella. So not quite sure, but it's something like that. And but at the time when Eva got her diagnosis, she was 5. It was about time for her to start school. We had been homeschooling for a while, but my son was going to a Waldorf school. And the Waldorf school is exceptionally good at honoring the intentions of the incarnating soul. Like their whole curriculum is built around it. And I knew that Eva was on a different path. I knew she was on a soul on a different path. And I wanted someplace that would educate her and honor that. So there wasn't anything in the New Jersey area. So we ended up moving to Pennsylvania. It's the only Waldorf school in the country for special needs children. And she started school, and I was just kind of like learning about the community. And I was eating lunch with these moms one day, and someone said, have you ever, I was telling her about like the long list of things that I've done to try to help support my daughter. And they said, have you ever had her natal chart read? And I was like, what is that? And they're like, her astrology chart. And Waldorf people call it a star chart. And I said, like, I'm a Capricorn, she's a Pisces. What else is there to know? And so they hooked me up with the local astrologer, and I had her natal chart read in 2010 when she was 5. And oh my gosh, I like he was able to describe her. Of course, like we can't see a diagnosis in a chart, but the way he was able to describe her, I was like, what is this and how did you do this? I have a lot of Scorpio planets in my chart. I became obsessed and very narrowly driven to, I gotta figure this out. And I started learning astrology back then through books. I was learning with a local astrologer. I had an astrology tutor down the road. And but that what that reading for her gave me was peace. And it was almost like the actual evidence of like, I knew she was a soul in a different path, and this describes her perfectly. And all I need to do as her mom is support her. And so and that began my astrology journey. And I went on, I teach my own classes. I also teach for Deborah Silverman. I have an online community. I post every day on Instagram. So that was really, Eva was my gateway into astrology. And I'm here with you today. And I've been working with, my affinity, my passion is really working with parents. But I do astrology for all kinds of people. So, I also am trained in parts work and internal family systems, and I work with the nervous system a lot. Believe me, being Eva's mom, I learned a lot about the brain. So I have a little fascination with it. So I bring that into my astrology. But tonight, yeah, we're just going to really talk about Mars retrograde, how to apply it in your chart. Felicia, you can go to the next slide, and we'll talk
All
about
right,
what
I'm going to
Mars.
try to hit this button and see if that helps.
Oh, there we go. You did it. I knew we would figure it out eventually. That's great. Okay,
There we
so
go. Perfect.
thank you. So here's what we're going to learn tonight. Um, we're going to talk about what to do and what not to do when Mars is in its retrograde period, starting tomorrow till February 23rd of next year. And so we're also going to talk about why Mars retrograde is important for the collective and then personally, and how to apply it to your own chart. I'm going to talk to the moms at the end of the slideshow just to like how to think about this for your kids. We're also going to discern what your unique Mars opportunity is. So you can, people can get a little wacky about retrogrades, especially Mars, because it's a very unusual retrograde. They're like, oh my God, they're like paralyzed. I don't want you to be paralyzed. I want you to really be fully educated about how to move through this time. And we will talk a little bit about the end, because during this retrograde, Mars, I believe it's January 6th, will oppose Pluto again in the sky, which is a big deal for the collective. And we're also going to be able to find that in your chart. Okay, next slide. Let's just do like a little Astro mini lesson. So we know that all planets revolve around the sun in one direction. And in astrology, we have something called retrograde motion. And this is when the planets appear to be moving backwards in the sky as seen from Earth, because it's really a cosmic optical illusion. But in astrology, how things appear from the Earth is how we do astrology. It's kind of like that quote, as above, so below, as within, so without. Um, so Mars appears to be moving backwards, and it has to do, it's caused by the Earth's faster orbit. And so it appears that it's moving backwards, but it's really not. And, Mars is a really special planet, and I'll tell you why. It's similar to Earth in that Earth orbits the sun in 1 year, Mars does it in two, like 26 months to be exact. They have a similar tilt. They actually have 4 seasons. They have a similar length of day. And the thing about Mars is that it retrogrades the least often. So every about 2 year, like every 26 months. And it spends the least amount of time. No, it's Venus spend like sometimes I can get these confused. Venus spends the least amount of time in retrograde. Mars retrogrades the least frequently. I think I said that correctly. Yeah. So, but it is both of those retrogrades. And Delisa, I would love to come back and do a Venus retrograde when it's time, because those two planets, like right now, Mercury is retrograde, and in my community, we're working with Mercury retrograde, but that's a lot more common than Mars retrograding. And the more unusual things are in astrology, the more impactful that they are down here for us. So we really want to pay attention to Mars when it's in its retrograde phase. Okay, next slide. So during retrograde periods in general, we do all of those words like review, reflect, reconsider. I like to use the word recalibrate. When Mars is retrograde, we recalibrate, we regroup, we go inside so we can be re-energized when Mars stations direct. And very often during, especially Mars and Venus retrograde, things from the past will come back. It could be people from the past, old issues. It could be old, like health issues suddenly resurface when Mars, yes, also Venus. Venus is, um, all of my astrologer friends, we joke, we're like, oh, this X from the past came back. But Mars retrograde just brings issues back from the past. So what rewords, you can drop these in the chat, do I not have up there? What can you think of? I was trying to think of like all the ones. Like I said, I love recalibrate for Mars. What are some other rewords? Reevaluate, repeat, yes, redo, receive, realign, renew, reorganize, revisit, re-educate ourselves, retreat. Thank you, Susan. Release, yeah. So it is this time where we go inside. And here's the weird thing is that it's like when Mars stations retrograde, like right around now. So I'm so glad we're doing this so close to the retrograde because it really helps. We can feel like, oh my God, I got to take care of this thing. But like, it's not the time to do that. But it is the thing, like whatever we're fired up about. I was sharing with my community this morning. I was in a pretty like heated email exchange with someone, which was like unusual. I have a Libra moon. Like I don't find myself in heated email exchanges often, but I'm like, and I'm fired up about it. And I want to kind of like do Mars. And I'm like, you know what? Let me go within. And so it is this time that we're guided, that's one of the things that we do is that we go inside. We're taking another look at something. Um, you could go to the next slide. So what I don't, sometimes I don't finish my sentences. It can feel like we got to take care of something. I got to do it now. I got to figure this out. I have to move forward. And we can be a little impatient, but now is not the time to do that. It is the time to look at something, and we'll talk about that. Okay, so, but how do you know what your soul is nudging you to take another look at? So we find Mars retrograde in your natal chart. I love all these words: rethink, revamp, relax, yeah, remember, redeem, replenish, all those things. Yeah, so we find the retrograde planet in your chart. So some of you just know your chart in your head. I'm thinking of a few people that I see in here, but all of you that got Delisa did a great job of, here's the email, here's your reminder, but it's also, hopefully you've downloaded your natal chart. If not, this is available on YouTube, Delisa, right? They could just go back to this part. So if you go to the next slide, I'm gonna ask, well, I think we're gonna do it in this chart that I have on the next slide. First of all, this is just a little piece of a natal chart. And I haven't really told you my view of what a natal chart is. So I see it as, I mean, I used to be an elementary school teacher. So, I think in lesson plans, I think about soul, I think about curriculum. So your natal chart is like your soul's curriculum. Whenever you were born, in the place you were born, at the time you were born, and you took your first breath, it's like you breathe, you inhaled the map of the sky and what was happening, and that becomes your soul curriculum in this lifetime. And in the ideal world, we would all do our chart. And it's just kind of part of Earth School that we knock around down here and we get off track and we make mistakes and we have transits that kind of knock us on our ass. And we do all expressions of our chart. Ideally, and this is why it's so helpful to know about things like, well, how do I think about Mars retrograde? Because it has you expand your consciousness. So it has us be more conscious about our action and like, and it's almost like I would love for you to leave with this little prescription of here's how I'm moving with Mars retrograde based on kind of what's showing up in my life right now. So what we do, we're going to find the magic degrees in your natal chart. And let me just do like a little tiny astrology mini lesson. And Delisa, maybe you could if you just point to like starting at Aries down there with the red, you know, it's on the left. Yeah, yeah, Aries. Okay, so we have Aries, and then we go to Taurus and Gemini and Cancer. We go all around the zodiac, right? Those are all, and it takes a whole year for the sun to go through all the signs. And that's the way the planets move, by the way. And all signs are 30 degrees. Houses are different sizes unless you use whole sign houses. And so I use Placidus. You can see this, the houses are not equal sizes. But if you follow Chani, like she's a extremely very famous astrologer. She's a great podcast. She wrote a book. She uses whole sign houses. You feel free to do that as well. So, but the houses are different sizes. All signs are 30 degrees. And so, Delisa, if you go to the very beginning of Aries, like, yep, right to the well, that's the sign. Just kind of go to the beginning of that sign. Yeah, right there, right. Well, down, that's the ascendant. This person is a 24-degree Pisces ascendant. Yes, that is actually the place of the spring equinox. That's 0 degrees Aries. And then at the very end of Aries is 29 degrees. So there are 30 degrees in each sign, and each one of those little lines is a degree. And the sun moves a degree a day. The planets move at different speeds, but so we're going to find, so the place of this retrograde and where Mars is retrograding right now is in Cancer and Leo. So we're going to go to the end degrees of Cancer. So 17, and you can see like the signs are divided. I mean, there are 30 little lines, but there's also, you can count by fives, 5, 10, 15, 20. So if you go to like right around 20 degrees, which is, yeah, right there, and then back a little tiny bit, that's 17 degrees. So this person, and by the way, the planets in the lighter portion, like the lighter shade of blue, that's what the sky looked like when this person was born. And the brighter blue on the outside of the wheel, that's the sky now. So you can imagine that Mars, that red planet in the sky, is moving, well, is actually right now at 6 degrees of Leo. So if you go forward, Delisa, yep, yeah, that's where Mars is right now, and it will appear to move backwards in the sky to 17 degrees of Cancer. So that's the portion that this person is going to pay attention to. And we're going to look at what house is being, so the planets are just parts of us. The signs are, like we have the planets, we have the sun, moon, Mercury. They're just different parts of our psyche. We all have them. The way those parts of us behave, the way they act, what they get excited about, what they need, is shown by the sign that they're in. And the houses are just those little slices of pie, like in the middle of the chart, Delisa, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the houses. And those are areas of life where these parts of us will develop themselves. So this person, those degrees, those magic degrees of 17 degrees of Cancer to 6 degrees of Leo, pretty much fall in one house. And if you go up to the middle, you can see it's house number 5. So for this person, they're going to pay a lot of attention to fifth house themes, which I'm going to go over in a minute. You can also Google, there's so many, you can ask ChatGPT, fifth house in astrology. And there's also going to be different flavors of themes activated because Mars will retrograde a little bit in Leo, and then it will retrograde a little bit in Cancer. So I'll talk more about those themes later. So you want to put your finger on where those degrees are in your natal chart. And it can be one house like this person's, or it can encompass like 2 different houses. And if you're using whole sign houses, it will be 2 houses. Okay. So if we go, so does everybody, any questions about that? You just have to go like find that little portion. Everybody has Cancer and Leo in your chart. Like if you're looking at your chart and you look at the zodiacal signs, like there's, even if you don't have any planets in Cancer and Leo, you still have that energy. We have all the energies inside of us. So the important thing is we're looking at the house for you. This is how we personalize it. Okay. If you go to the next slide, Delisa, I'm just briefly going to go through these. So now that you know where this Mars will be activating in your chart, I'm just going to go through all of these, but I would invite you to put it into Google. You know, if it's 2 houses, what is it for me? It's in my 5th house, in my 6th house. So you could go to Cafe Astrology, astro.com, and just put 5th house in astrology, 6th house in astrology. And those are the personal themes. That's the area of life, those topics. The houses are very like, that's where the stuff happens. So we're gonna like, that's like the things that are showing up in our life will most likely fit into those houses, those areas of life. So if it's happening in your 1st house, it has to do with your physical constitution, how you show up to other people, how you meet the world, how you occur to other people. It can also be your physical body because the ascendant is there. Then we go to the 2nd house, and the 2nd house is a very earthly, practical house. It's about money, the value that we place on ourselves, the value that we place on things, um, the things that we value, the things like that we own, like Taurus. This is the house that's associated with Taurus, which is why you see those little the zodiac symbols up there. It's just this is a house wheel that I use in my community. Those houses have the flavor of the sign, but signs and houses are very different things. So if we go to the 3rd house, this is the house it's an airy, like mental house, communication, siblings, my local neighborhood, the things that happen all around me on a daily basis. Um, Writing falls into this category, our mind, our early learning. So if you have like Mars retrograding in this area of life, there can be issues from when you were younger actually coming back, like issues of like learning or things like that. The 4th house that's an important house because it's on an angle. It has to do with our family, our home, our origin, the emotional climate that was happening when we were growing up, but it also has to do with our home now. The 5th house is fun, fun, creativity, self-expression, play, romance, This is also the house of children. We create our children, right? This is a very, this is, yeah, this house loves to be out there showing itself. The sixth house is more work oriented. It's practical. It talks about our routines and our rituals, our health, the work that we do every day. Like, me, I look at charts, I talk to my community, I post on Instagram, I answer emails. This is how we take care of ourselves. And then the seventh house is about, it's another air house, just like the third house. And it's about communication, partnerships, those one-on-one partnerships, agreements that we make. This is the house where we say, you and me, here's how it's going to go. So marriage falls into this house. And in the eighth house, that's a water house. It's a more intimate house. This is sex, death, intimacy, rebirth. So this is a house of transformation. And yeah, all those things that people don't like to talk about that are a little taboo and uncomfortable, that falls into the eighth house. Then we have the ninth house of the bigger picture, education, the higher way, that like our higher, how we like talk about life, the higher law, this politics also fall in here, religion, spirituality, travel. And then in the 10th house, that is really our career. That's our status in society. Um, this is a house that works very hard. It's very diligent. This house is like no nonsense growing up. The 11th house is about let's see, just checking the chat before yes, the eighth house therapy. Fourth house, any water house. If you have Mars retrograde happening in either the fourth house, eighth house, 12th house, the looking at the psyche, look like taking another look at your water, your emotions, your psyche, it's a good thing to do. The 11th house is all about the people that you associate with. It's the house that traditionally it's the house of hopes, dreams, and wishes. Um, Brilliant movements, like reforms, like doing things differently. That's the 11th house. And the 12th house, there are whole books written on the 12th house because it's such a big house. This is like the house of the unconscious, other lives. Like this is the house that this area of life, Delisa channels when she talks to dead people. This is the house of all that is on a really big. This is the house where we're all one, and it is like it can be a tricky house because it's like, yes, it's the house of past lives and things that we don't know about, and so it can be a little hard to work with that. This is a very intuitive house. You want to look for signs, oracles, anything mystical. That all falls in the 12th house. So I would really encourage you to, this is like the very short rundown, like really do a little research on the house that Mars retrograde is activating in your natal chart, because that's part of the formula. Um, yeah, the magic degrees, it's just because Mars is retrograding in those areas. So that's why I say magic degrees. Those are the very activated degrees when we're talking about Mars retrograde. Okay, Delisa, you can go to the next slide. So we have 10 planets and all planets retrograde except the sun and moon. And when Mercury, Venus, and Mars retrogrades, we really get to work with these planets personally. Mars is one of those in-between planets. It literally, as you can see, there's the Earth, you see the moon there. Mars is that planet that is outside of Earth's orbit, and it's like in between Earth and all the outer planets. And so Mars is kind of that go between that separates. Mars is a planet that likes to cut and separate, like inner planets, outer planets. But for easy reference, I call Mars an inner planet, even though it's technically not. But Mars is that first planet, like for those of you who know some astrology, Mercury always stays pretty close to the sun. Venus stays pretty close to the sun. Mars is the first planet that breaks away and can go all around the zodiac, no matter where the sun is. So it is that it kind of like it's a very different kind of planet because it is so personal to us. But when Mars is retrograde, it's in that area opposite of the sun. And we'll talk about that. I don't want to get too astrological. Um, Bottom line, it's a really important planet to pay attention to. All right, let's just look at Mars in astrology. You can go to the next slide. So Mars is our motivation, our passion, our power. It's how we initiate action, how we take action, how we assert ourselves. Mars loves to stir the pot. Mars is how we fight for what matters to us. Mars is the planet that gets us fired up. It's very provocative. It's aggressive. It totally is. One of the ways to think about what's my Mars opportunity is like, what are you pissed off at right now? Like, what are you fired up about? What are you worked up about? What are you passionate about? What do you want to like go after? You can be thinking about this, like what's feeling Marsy right now in your life. Mars is our divine, hopefully conscious masculine energy. We need a lot of consciousness when we work with Mars, or bad things happen, like wars get started, right? Wars is something that falls under Mars category. So Mars asserts itself. It's very independent. And so you remember in the beginning when I said the planets are just parts of us? It's like Mars is that part that, is basically all of these things. Mars is that planet of action. Venus is the planet that, it's like Venus says, I would love this. And Mars is like, I'll take care of that. And Mars goes out and gets what Venus desires. So they do work together. They are our relationship planets. They are our divine feminine, our divine masculine. All right, what's on the next slide? Where am I here? Okay. So these are some dates to know. So if you can think about, because this is kind of how we discern what is our Mars opportunity. In my community, I had everybody kind of write down, or back on October 6th, what's showing up right now. Mars was in Cancer, but the pre-shadow, and the pre-shadow means that Mars will eventually visit those degrees again. So, you can look at your pictures on your phone, you can go look in your journal, look in your calendar, like what was happening in my life back on October 6th. You can kind of take note of that. And then Mars stations retrograde tomorrow. So what's showing up in your life and it can even be things that you're angry about too. Like anger issues can be showing up right now. Anger is a Mars kind of thing. And you can also, you also want to think about, well, what areas of life is Mars activating right now because it's in Cancer and it's in Leo. And so you can add that to the equation. And then so Mars will, we're going to just it's going to turn. I'm saying this, but it doesn't actually go backwards, right? We know all planets revolve around the sun in one direction, but the optical illusion makes it look like Mars is turning and going backwards. So tomorrow, Mars will station retrograde in Leo, and then on the 6th of January, it will move into Cancer, and it will station direct in Cancer on February 23rd, and then the post shadow phase, like when Mars is completely done with all of the retrograde shenanigans, isn't until May 3rd. So when Mars is in its retrograde phase, it's a long time. And Mars won't leave Leo until June 17th. So this is a while that we're going to be developing this and working on this. Okay, so you can go to the next slide. So here's what to do when Mars is in its retrograde phase. We are rethinking how to move forward. We're rethinking about things. And right now, you don't need to, you don't need to think like, okay, let me rethink this so I can figure everything out. You have a while to figure things out. But, whenever we have a planet, like especially Mars, that retrogrades, our soul is saying it's time to take another look at something. So you want to get curious. What is that for you? So eventually, we're rethinking how we're going to move forward and the direction that we want to move in. Mars is a very directional planet. So you want to slow down, you want to turn inward, you want to do those rewords. And, our motivation and our vitality are moving in a different direction. You can think of it that way. So we can feel low energy. We can be like, oh my God, I was so pumped up about this. And now it's like, I don't want to do it anymore. So we can feel a little confused about our motivations and desires. And by the way, Neptune stations direct, I think this weekend. And so it can be like a little bit of a foggy time anyway. So when Mars is in his retrograde phase, it can feel like it's time to slow down, but we don't want to. And if we try to like just push ahead, there's going to be like a lot of efforting. So it's not the best time to move ahead. Um, it's not the time for that. It's the time for reflection and rethinking. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, we've got a question coming in. I don't want to miss it. They're asking if Christina's asking if the retrograde is bringing back themes from the last retrograde in 2022, 2023. Does it
Yeah.
bring back themes from other retrogrades?
Yeah, it absolutely can. And it can bring back a lot of things. Yes, Christina, hi, by the way. It can bring back things from the last retrograde. It can also, like, what's showing up for, I'm going to share this with my community tomorrow, but it's a little bit of a long story. But what's showing up for me right now is a health thing from 9 years ago. And when I looked back 9 years ago, Mars, when I got the surgery done, Mars is exactly at those same degrees because I actually got an appointment to go see the surgeon again on Monday. And as soon as I scheduled it, and they're like, our first available is Monday. And I thought, a few days after Mars stations retrograde, and it's, Mars is a surgery is a Mars thing. So there's something about this past surgery that I'm taking another look at. So definitely, yes to that. Yes. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's can be fascinating to go back and retrace your steps and look at the themes. Astrology always has those themes, but because this is just like an overall overview of Mars retrograde, I didn't want to get too technical. Um, okay, what's your Mars opportunity? So we get to reclaim our direction, our healthy, conscious intention, and our divine masculine energy. That's why, as I said, when we work with Mars, we need a lot of awareness and consciousness. We can feel reactive, absolutely, when Mars is strong in the sky, as it is now, but it's not the time to react. It's not the time to move ahead. Um, it's not the time to start a war. It's not the time to start a battle with someone. I'll talk a little bit more about those like do's and don'ts, but we really get to step back and reevaluate how we use our energy. We get to look inside and say, how do I want to use my energy? What am I passionate about? Right? Because it begins the retrograde in Leo. We get to, and then it's going to go back into Cancer. So we get to look at the old emotional patterns that are getting in the way of you showing up in life on your own terms. Mars definitely has terms that it likes to show up in life with, you know? And so life always shows us what we need to look at. So that's why I want you to think about what is showing up right now, what's been showing up in these past few days. When I looked back at October 6th. And what happened yesterday, I was like, you can't make this shit up. Like it was exactly something happened, and now the next step is happening here. It's connected, but I can feel that it is not the time for me to begin this new thing. So, um, let's talk a little bit about that Mars, the Leo flavor and the Cancer flavor, because everybody here now knows their house flavor that they're looking at. So let's talk about what does it mean when it's in Cancer? What does it mean when it's in Leo? So you can go to the next one. Okay, so it begins its retrograde in Leo. So Leo themes will be showing up. Creativity, being in the spotlight, generosity, how you authentically do you. What's your heart passionate about? Can you follow your heart's passion? Courage. Um, Ego things can be coming up right now. Um, our ego can be more sensitive. Retrograde stirs up, especially in Leo, this retrograde can be stirring up unresolved issues of the ego right now. So I definitely can see it in a few people in my life. But there can be frustrations around Leo themes. So that's also homework that you can do on your own. Just, Leo in astrology and read all about that archetype. Those themes can be showing up, especially right now because Mars is in Leo. And then remember at the beginning of January, it will move back into Cancer. And so Cancer themes, emotional issues from childhood, family stuff, family now, family then, emotional security stuff, uh, your home now, your home when you were growing up. We can emotions now, emotions from a long time ago. We can even issues with your mother, mothering, female lineage, all these things. How you nurture others, how you nurture yourself. It can be a time for you to really reconnect and heal things from the past. So here's the formula. You want to, it can be I would look at, because Mars is in Leo now and it's the beginning of the retrograde, I would look at those Leo themes. And then you're going to look at where is Mars right now? It's at 3 degrees of Leo. What house is that in? And then I'm looking around my life. What's showing up? What am I pissed off about? What am I fired up about? What are you a little Marsy about? And then this is what you're going to work with. And then note that somewhere. Like I always tell my community members to keep a transit journal. Write down your little kind of like your little story. For me, it can be the surgery thing. It's also has something very different than that. It can be more than one thing, for sure. And you'll see those things develop as we go through the retrograde phase. Okay, so here are some questions to ask yourself. I think I went over this. Cancer, what emotional baggage from your past? Did I go over this? I can't remember. Okay. Oh yeah, right. So you want to take the Leo flavor, the Cancer flavor, and you want to layer on the house in your natal chart. You're getting another look at something here. That's why issues are coming up. If people from your past come up, or like this surgery thing is coming up, there's something to look at. What is that? You're getting another look at something. Any questions about that? Like kind of like piecing those things together for yourself. What's showing up, what house is being activated in your natal chart. We're also adding the Cancer and the Leo theme. And of course, we're thinking about all those Marsy things.
Yeah, we've got some comments about people feeling fired up. I definitely feel that as well. So if anybody wants to comment if they've been feeling the fire, put it in the comments.
Or, oh my God, or other people's fire. Like, wow, I've seen a few things like that happen. sometimes we can't see it so much in ourselves. I mean, I think most of us can in the room because we are that introspective, those introspective kinds of people that care about this stuff. But we can really see it. I mean, there have been a few things, like even if you've been watching the news, that are very Marsy, that are very intense. Mars is like an intense planet. Mars is our personal will. Pluto is our higher divine will. Um, Okay, a few other thoughts I wanted to share, and then I also want to talk about the collective stuff. So you can go to the next slide. So for those people that have an Aries sun, moon, or rising, or because Mars rules Aries, or a Scorpio sun, moon, or rising. I don't know why I didn't put that on there, but Scorpio, Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio as well. There's being more, or if you have Mars on your ascendant, like the planet Mars on your ascendant on one of your angles next to your sun, next to your moon, you are Marsy kind of people. And there can be more that's stirred up in your life. So pay attention. It's like there's more change. There's more of a like a going within that wants to happen with you. But as I said, it's like, I really, really don't like to get superstitious about this stuff, but it's not the best time to make major, final, big decisions because that's a moving forward. You can very much reconsider. Like I have somebody in my life, Mars is very strong in his chart. He's like chomping at the bit to get moving on something. I'm like, oh God, please, can we just wait at least until the second part of the retrograde, which is like, February. Let me see. After Mars is like halfway through its retrograde, it's like it has a kind of a different feel. We start to get more clarity, but it's not the time for starting like anything that's gonna like a battle, like a legal thing. Um, let's just like even starting something like a new workout routine, you can start when Mars is retrograde, but most likely when Mars turns direct, it will fizzle out a little bit. I remember I was talking with someone many, many years ago. Mars had just stationed retrograde, and she told me that she had sex with her boyfriend for the first time, this guy that she was dating. I was like, well, it's not good to have sex with someone for the first time when Mars is in its retrograde phase. Not that it wouldn't be enjoyable, but you're going to be taking another look at something when Mars stations direct. It's not Mars rules sharp objects. Like it's not the best time to buy a brand new sharp object. It's not the best time for elective surgery unless you're addressing something from the past, like you're fixing something from the past. Um, then it's okay. And you have to do what you have to do. I mean, I just told my community the story about when Mercury was retrograde and we had to sign on this house, like there, or we would lose it and the ramifications of that. I mean, we still have this great house. We love it, but we had to like work some stuff out because we ended up signing when Mercury was retrograde. So, just some things to keep in mind. And because I work with moms, I just put for the moms, you can look where it is in your kids' chart, but let them just, you don't need to get in there and fix their retrograde, do anything about it. But it can be interesting to be like, oh, right, they did come home from school and tell me about this. They're very upset about that. I was doing that with my daughter, and exactly what she said on the way home from school. I thought, I see it because I know where it is in her chart. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm holding space for her to work it out because it's like the best thing you can do for your kids is do your own Mars work. That's the best thing you can do for your kids. And also, here's a little bit, I wanted just to talk about like your natal Mars placement. So, um, that also kind of comes into play. It's like in the background, because if you take your finger and put it on your natal Mars, find Mars in the sky when you were born, that that's how you do Mars in this lifetime. So, for me, it's Scorpio in the eighth house. So those themes are also coming up right now because whenever we talk about Mars up there, the way I'm uniquely wired, the way that I am Mars is in in that sign in that house. So there can be a flavor of your own natal Mars that you can kind of like add to the mix and stir around. Um, or Lisa, you can go to Lisa, you can go to the next slide. I just wanted to talk about the collective. I'm just
Yeah, sorry. There is a question that Jackie has wondering if there's a relationship between Mars and healthcare. She's noticing different headlines about healthcare and even if that is applicable to Leo or Cancer at all.
yeah, I mean, definitely Mars because it's such a personal planet. It does rule like, it rules the things that we put in our body. It also rules like the things that leave our body. Like it's Mars is very directional. And so the fact that, Cancer is that sign of nurturing, it's like it's ruled by the moon. The moon is refers to our body. So health things for sure can be coming back, but that also has to do like it can be breast, uh womb, heart things. Those are all things that have to do with those signs. Yeah, let me just talk about the thoughts on the collective. I specifically want to talk about Mars and Pluto. So right before the election on November 3rd, Mars and Pluto were opposite. If we think back to what the freaking climate was like right before the election, everybody was like, and so we have this other, is it January 3rd or January 6th? I'm like second. Sarah B, if you're still here, I bet you are still here. Is it January 6th or January 3rd? I can't think where Mars and Pluto are opposite. Um, because that's the 6th. Yeah, I thought so, Christina. Of course. Oh, you would be the other one to know. And Rachel, thank you. Um, that's the second touch in with Mars opposite Pluto. I mean, basically, Mars opposite Pluto is about control. It's highlighting power struggles, fear. um Pluto brings up those really Pluto brings hidden things, so there can be things that come to light from the dark, the stuff that we don't actually want to really be looking at, that's in the shadow. Pluto has to do with money, sex, death, intimacy. um it's Mars is our personal will, Pluto is the higher will. So it can feel like control things coming to the surface right now. And, it will, Mars stirs the pot, Pluto digs up the freaking truth. So, there can be a lot of things that we see right around the 6th. Um, and then again, Pluto and Mars will oppose each other on April 27th. So it's really because, we really want to work with Mars. Mars is a lot easier to work with than Pluto because Mars is our personal will. We really want to we want to do we want to show up as our authentic self. We want to do the Leo work. We want to do the Cancer work of breaking free from old programs, like family stuff that's holding us back from really being truly who we are in our authentic expression. Because it's in opposition, we want to stop projecting our own shit onto other people, like owning your stuff for sure. Yeah, but other people or circumstances or the government or the president, like what is it about you? Work with you. The collective is going to do what it does. There's a process happening for all of us. We all signed up to be here right now that we have to trust, and I really, Pluto moving into Aquarius was a big deal, right? We talked about that for a while, but Pluto and Neptune will be making a beautiful aspect to each other next year and will also be making a beautiful aspect to Uranus. So our three transpersonal planets will be playing nicely together next year. I'm hopeful and I'm hopeful for the collective. Like, and it's going to do what it does, but do your own Mars work. Work with your own projections and giving away your power. Um, Delisa, you can go to the next slide. What do we have there? Oh, those are ways that you can stay in touch with me. Um, I did want to take questions, and a question that I usually get when I talk about retrograde planets is what if you have Mars retrograde natally in your chart? So if you have Mars retrograde natally, there's going to be a little R beside, um, you'll see it on the symbol, but you'll also see it like over in the little key, or it's not a legend, but like that little box that gives the symbols. Um, if you were born under Mars retrograde, that means the sun, your sun, and your natal Mars, it's somewhere, it's in the opposite, there's an opposition going on. And it may be a little out of order, but it's still Mars is opposite your sun. And so, you become aware of who you are, sun, through stressful things, through doing brave, badass kind of Marsy things. You learn more about who you are, but there are two parts of you that fight back and forth. There's the Mars part that's like, I got to prove myself. Does anybody in here have natally Mars retrograde?
We
Does that ring
have Lori's asking about Mars retrograde as a general question about like the do's and
Okay.
don'ts for it.
Okay, I answer that in a second, Lori. I'm curious, does anybody have, because maybe this, I can't imagine there are this many people.
Paula says yes.
Yeah, you
Paula
do.
says yes, and Aries in the 11th house.
Yeah, you have Mars retro. Okay, Lori, you do. Yeah, Shawnee, you do. Um, you know, it's like you have two parts of yourself. The part that wants to prove itself is in opposition to like your true inner purpose. And so you have to like realize that you are not here to do it like everybody else. You're not here to be like everyone else. And you really have to come to terms with that. Like your own desires are yours and you need to trust them. You're a very instinctual person and following your instincts. By the way, when Mars is retrograde for everybody, we really need to pay attention to what our intuition and what our instinct is telling us. Um, it's like, and for you natal retrograde Mars people, you want to get really in touch with what you internally crave. But that's true for all of us right now, starting tomorrow. What is it that I'm internally, like really, really wanting deep down inside? Pay attention to that. What other questions, Delisa? And feel free, Delisa, because you're so knowledgeable about, especially about collective things, and what's been coming through for you. Anything that you want to add to anything that I said?
It's interesting with the headlines. I'm expecting a lot more around that fiery nature. And I love what you said about maybe it's not you that's feeling that fire, but maybe you're experiencing someone else that's going off the rails a little bit. And I think of like, how great is it that we can come together and talk about this? And I love what you've shared, Tara. And I also think about all of the people that have no idea
Hmm.
about what's going on.
Yes, that's the other thing is that you need to know that Mars is doing something different in the sky and be mindful of other people's Mars. Trust your instinct, trust if something doesn't feel right, because we're not all conscious of this.
Yeah, I imagine that there will be a lot of road rage.
Yeah.
Um, it's what comes up kind of psychically for me. I'm clairvoyant, so I start seeing symbols and things when I tap into the energy. I think the shooting that happened in New York yesterday morning. I know details are still coming out about that, but I think that news story is interesting as we're heading into this
Yeah.
Mars retrograde. I imagine there is going to be more headlines like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a wild time to be alive.
It is. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Christina's saying there's going to be a lot of illusions brought to the light.
yeah.
Yes,
Pay
it's a good
attention to
one.
that, that January Mars Pluto opposition. I'm curious what will, there could, it definitely Mars Pluto can be violence. I mean, for sure. Yeah, someone offered to take, they always, there's people at Eva's school, they go places and they bring kids, and it's like the parents pay for the kids to go on a little trip. They were going to like the first week of January to the Washington, D.C. area. I was like, no way you're going there. Like, no way. I believe that, is it 3 days before or 3 days after that our new president gets sworn in? When Mars and Pluto are opposite, like we'll see. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
because the inauguration is scheduled for January 20th. It's the same day as Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But I've been making a lot of predictions about the energy of political leaders, and I do a lot of like live streams on Instagram. The other day I actually connected into Joe Biden's higher self. It was right after he pardoned Hunter. And I hadn't really ever sat with Joe's energy. And that was really fascinating. But as we get closer to the inauguration for the US, it just feels like expect the unexpected. I think there's a lot that's going to unfold between now and January 20th.
Mhm.
Um, but having this context about Mars retrograde, I think really lends to the story that could be unfolding there.
Yeah. Yeah, the things happening in Georgia, South Korea, the earthquake today. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to go jump on Instagram after this and talk about it because last night, I shared this with you a little bit, Tara, before we went live today. I get a lot of physical sensations in my body about earthquakes, and it's happened for years. And I've been getting a lot of earthquake signals. And last night, I was like, I was literally waiting. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I was just waiting. I'm like, I can feel it so strongly. Where is it? And so then today to have, that news story shared about the earthquake looked like off the coast of California, but it wasn't surprising. But I do expect an uptick in natural disasters as well. Because as we're going through all of this as humans, our animals are feeling it, the earth is feeling it. So it's not just what we're experiencing as us or the people around us, but it's, I think, all of earth and the living creatures on it as well. So yeah, my cat's been running around acting crazy. I'm sure people's animals and dogs maybe have been doing the same thing, but they can feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's especially intense when the stations happen. So right now, tomorrow, the next day, and then I mean also with the Pluto Mars opposition, that will be strong. But then when it stations direct, what did I say? Stations direct on February 23rd. Those are times when Mars is like that's when we would see very Marsy things. Um, Shawnee, if you want, if you're still confused about where it is in your chart, just send me a picture of your chart on DM me on Instagram and I can find it for you. Um, questions, questions to mitigate the intensity. Haley, consciousness and awareness of how you move with life, like being really present to what's showing up for you. I mean, the medicine for Mars also move your energy. Like, if you're feeling anger, give it an outlet. If you're feeling something, give it an outlet. But just becoming conscious and directing your energy is good Mars therapy right now. Um, and then Kathy, my natal Mars is Leo 0 degrees. Oh, yeah. So you have your Mars return in the eighth house. Wow, yeah. How will this affect me additionally when Mars? Well, here's the way is that it's just going to be stronger for you. But so you want to really, you're really being asked to work with that Mars Pluto energy right now, since your Mars is at 0 degrees of Leo. So you're like in a bigger, longer transit that's just, it's just more intense for you. If you work with an astrologer, it can be like to look at when Pluto was exactly opposite, or maybe, even if you know how to use an ephemeris, there's also a free ephemeris on astro.com, and you can figure out like what was showing up in your life when when Pluto was opposite Mars, your natal Mars, for the first time, second time. Yeah, there's always life is showing us what like like what of our life content that it's here for us to work with. So yeah, do what we talked about, Lori, go within, reflect, do all those rewords. And yeah, I spoke about that, like a little bit of the things not to do.
We've got Nikki over on YouTube is asking if you have any insight on progressed Mars. So she's going to have progressed Mars in the 12th house now, but I know that term progressed moon, Mars, Venus, whatever the body is. Do you have any thoughts on something you could share today about progressed Mars?
That's a big, big, big topic. Progressions and transits are really different. So tonight we just worked with transits. I mean, progress Mars moves very, very slowly. So I mean, I'd have to look at your chart in order to comment on what that may mean for you. But I think keeping it to transits, keeping it to what's showing up in your life, and, keeping it really simple would be the way that I wouldn't complicate things with then trying to add like progress Mars in there either also.
We've got another question here. Does this affect planets that are located on the same degrees in the Leo Cancer
Yeah.
axis?
Absolutely. So Mars will be visiting them. Mars will be conjunct them. So that part of us, so if it's Venus, the part of us that, it's our desire nature, our, me and you, like, let's connect. Let Venus magnetizes, it draws in. That part of you is also, there's something you're getting in, because Mars will retrograde back and meet up with your Venus. So there's something about that part of you that's also like part of this unique formula. So you want to notice also what's showing up right now with your Venus in Cancer, or your, if it's Venus or Venus in Leo. Um,
Elisa's got a whole scenario on here. I don't know if you want to take that in the comments, but there's also a similar question about the orb. So, what orb degrees do you use, Tara? What do you recommend for this?
so my natal, are you looking at my natal Mars in the ninth house? It's at Cancer at 15 degrees, and it sits in the Pluto decan. I have a stellium in that house, and yes, my sun is there. Yeah, I mean, Lizzie, I do, what should you expect? I'm less of a predictive astrologer, more of tell me what's showing up in your life right now, like really looking at like what we did earlier, not like, well, if this is, if this, then that, because that takes away our free will, and it takes away this co-creation and this dance that we have the opportunity, like we can dance every day with the moon. I mean, we do it in my community. And so there's always this like this opportunity to, like, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul, so it's always this opportunity for us. I mean, I would definitely, like what you should expect is it's a much bigger story. The whole chart would have to be taken into consideration. But, you know, um, your natal Mars is getting a little activation because it's close, it's only 2 degrees away. But I would stick to the simplicity of what we talked about tonight and putting those pieces together. Your natal Mars is going to get activated, as I said, anyway, all of our natal Mars, right? And Aries people and Scorpio people are going to feel this a little bit more than, I mean, it really depends. I don't know if Mars is retrograding over your ascendant, well, then you're going to feel it too, So it really, there's so many, our natal charts are so unique to us. So there's many, many, you know, individual answers. Work is
Yeah, and
insane.
then
Oh, you can,
uh,
that's another thing. Thanks, Lizzie. You can exhaust yourself because you're pushing too hard when Mars is in retrograde, right? We want to watch our push. We can feel more tired. Our energy is lower. You don't want to just barrel through. It probably won't work anyway, so why do it? Um, yeah,
and
I mean, period,
orb.
PMS. Yeah, that's a cancer. That's a cancer thing, Kathy. Um,
What orb do you use, Tara?
Well, like orbs for like how close a natal planet is.
Yeah, so Jen was asking, I have my ascendant at 10 degrees Leo. Would this be significant or outside of the orb?
Your ascendant is at 10 degrees. I would say that you'll have to see, but I would say that it's the orb is a little wide. If Mars is going to retrograde at 3, it feels like the action is 12th house for you then. It's not, but because Leo rules your ascendant, that's the other thing is that there's more to the story that I didn't get into tonight, like the house that's ruled by Cancer, the house that's ruled by Leo. For those of you who are a little bit more advanced, those houses are getting activated. So yes, even though it's not there yet, that house can be being activated because Mars is is a planet that activates and likes to poke you. So and you'll have to see how that shows up. Like this is really what we do in my community. Like what is showing up? What pieces can you put together? What opportunities is the universe giving me right now to do my own unique Mars work? Um,
I think
thank
I'd
you.
cut you off with the one comment about like the PMS and pain and depressive feelings.
Yeah, Kathy, if that's what's showing up right now, I would write that down. I would work with that because that is a very Cancerian thing. Um, it's like if it's pain, if it's like that pain, that's like Mars. Um, Feeling down and depressive, which is anything unusual. I love that you said that. It's very unusual. Anything that's unusual right now that's showing up, work with that. Because this is an unusual transit. Mars does not retrograde that often, and it's long, right? You're writing down, oh, this is exactly what I did this morning. I wrote down all the things that are showing up right now. And I know what showed up in the shadow, in the pre-shadow, and so I'm going to see how things unfold. Like we can't, astrology is moving, in my opinion, strong opinion, is moving away from the very predictive. It is, we just have so much more consciousness and free will than we did when people started watching the stars a long time ago. Like life was very determined for us back then. It's very different now. And let's see how can you work with this? What else will show up during the retrograde period? Um, and at that station direct back, I mean, in February, there is then at that point, we're like, now we know a lot more than we did, especially October 6th, December 6th, when it actually, yeah, tomorrow, when it actually stations retrograde. Like then we're more able to move forward with conscious awareness. We've done our work, our Mars work. Delisa, I need to like feed my family.
Yes, I think there was just, yeah. What's the best way for them to connect with you if they have another question?
Instagram. Uh,
Instagram.
yeah,
And
Instagram.
then can you mention your website and everybody that registered will get the link to your website directly after we're over when and done with this.
Yeah,
But
you'll also be on my email list, and I send out, a weekly email with what's happening in the sky. My website is luminaryparenting.com. But Instagram is, I share what's happening every day in the sky. I share funny memes about astrology. Today we did the different Christmas trees, you know, Aries tree, Taurus tree, just fun stuff. Um, yeah, and I teach classes, and I also teach for Deborah Silverman. She has a really great astrology school. It's really fun. I mean, we don't, what month are we in? We're in December. Okay, yeah. It will open for enrollment at the end of January. So it's a great way to learn astrology. Hi, Jessica.
And are you okay with me sharing the slides with folks that registered?
Yeah, that's fine. Hi,
Okay.
Daniel. I'm seeing so many faces. I didn't get to say hi to everyone, but it's really great. And Emily, and yeah, and people from my community, Karina again. Um, okay, I'm gonna go feed my kids, but yeah, you can share the slides, Instagram, like if you like I would prefer not like, here's my chart, tell me what to expect. I really want you to do your own, like, look, I can help you. Like, if you can't figure out what house it's in, I can easily say, go look up sixth house and fifth house, and then notice what's showing up. And especially, it's tomorrow. So I would expect there will be also like more news things that happen, and you're confirming that, Delissa.
Yeah.
Lisa. I say Delissa, it's Delisa, right?
It's
Delisa.
Delisa. Yeah, all good. All good. Yeah, we'll be watching those headlines. And Tara, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and for putting this incredible class together for us. I learned a lot. I took 2 pages worth of notes. I'm sure we all got something from it. And yeah, I appreciate your time and your talent. And it has been great connecting with everyone here on Zoom and on YouTube. And thanks everybody for joining. And
Yeah.
yeah, let's do Venus retrograde.
Yeah, I have to figure out when that is, but that's a fun one. Oh, that's a lot of fun also. I think it's more fun. Venus is it's a little bit more fun than Mars, but Mars is super powerful, especially right now with Pluto. So, okay, everybody, I'll see you. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, everybody. And I'll follow up with an email right after we get off.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yay. Beautiful.